Hello, everybody, and welcome back to China Talk. There is so much to discuss this week, but first of all, we have to acknowledge that it is time for All Stars Weekend, and along with that, 4 out of the 6 voted in for Pacific are Chinese players. So that was pretty exciting. I personally can't wait to see all of the game modes. I wonder how much Wrecking Ball we're gonna see. What are you looking forward to, Vowels?
I'm looking forward to everyone discovering the flex god we all know Among to be. Everyone going about Pacific have elected 2 main tanks. They don't know.
Oh, they don't know. They lack the critical information, is what we're saying.
They don't know the single tank May and Pharaoh on the streets of King's Rome or 7 Club strats. Man, Among is so much more than a ball one trick, and I'm ready for the world to find out.
And there's going to be so many good game modes too, like the all Genji versus all Hanzo. Can anyone match up with Bumper's Hanzo?
Again, Among.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's the answer to everything tonight, pretty much.
Among plays everything except Winston, apparently.
Oh.
I mean, he can play it. It's just,
maybe not the greatest.
Not the great. It's towards the bottom of his main tank tier list. Is
at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
You know? I'm sure there's like maybe a Symmetra above the Winston. Maybe there's like some sort of Torbjorn pick. Pistol only Mercy, maybe above that one.
That's so sad. But it was just, I was so disappointed we didn't get to see the ball in stage playoffs. But on the bright side, for the very first time.
Close. One win.
Yeah, we were that close, like literally that close. But for the first time, we did finally get 2 Chinese Overwatch teams. And especially with Hangzhou being able to defeat London. I was in the crowd that night, and it was absolutely insane. I had no clue that they would surprise like that so much. We've been hearing so much about Hangzhou's scrims. Did you guys enjoy that game?
Yeah, I mean, this was... I think a lot of people thought that London... I think people put a lot of weight into them throughout their Stage 2 performance and what that looked like. And going into this game... I don't know that everybody was sleeping on Hangzhou, but it seems like they've gotten their stuff together. I don't know if it was a stage thing, that they're starting to translate that kind of hype to actual official matches, which is absolutely brilliant to see. It's always nice to have another, good kind of contender enter the fold and really kind of sit in the middle of the pack and be confident that they're actually sitting there, because at the beginning of the stage, I was ready to kind of put them towards the bottom of the pack. Now they're sitting pretty comfortable for me towards the middle, and they're like just a solid, decent team that could make a stab at stage playoffs given a proper schedule.
I mean, I love Spark as much as the next guy, Hoodie, for example. But to be fair, I do think that playoff performance was a little bit of an example of Dr. London and Mr. Spitfire that we've come to know, where they went 6-1 in stage 2 during the regular season. They looked great, but the Spitfire we saw in playoffs was not the Spitfire that went 6-1. Credit to Spark, they played really well. They did deserve to win the game, but it was not a strong Spitfire showing either.
And I think it was weird because we also saw like this kind of faded battle that we wanted to see. Like everyone was hyping up this kind of, Gushue versus Jester. Both of them have kind of made their names on Winston specifically. And I think Gushue, for a lot of that series had the upper hand, especially in the Rhyme battle, which has always been Jester's kind of weak point, but it has also been Gushue's weak point at the same time. But Gushue had a phenomenal series from what I remember watching that.
He won MVP for the series, I'm pretty sure.
And I think this is really like the Gushue that we wanted to see more of, that he didn't really get the chance to be in stage 1. We kind of had Hangzhou in this bad area where, they weren't living up to the hype that was put around them with all the scrimbucks and everything. But now we got to see this team actually adapt, and they played pretty well. Gushue, again, I can sing his praises for, till the cows come home. I love that guy. He's one of my favorite players ever. And he played phenomenal. And I think, did we see Crystal a little bit in that series at all, or was
he was in like a map 1, I believe, and he's usually starting on the control, but then he's subbed out pretty quickly after.
Okay.
Yeah, what they've typically been doing is map 1 and 4, I believe, for Crystal. It's nice to see him in the rotation at least.
Yes,
it's starting to integrate.
It's surprising because this was like kind of death knell for this team. Like you have these Chinese players that we know to be very good, but how quickly can you integrate them? Like I didn't expect No Sight to be an amazing main tank. I think that he would have worked well with the team players in the past. And moving Gusha and Crystal into those roles, it was okay. How quickly can you integrate them? And this has been a faster pace than I was prepared for. So maybe we've got more to see from Spark. I kind of assumed that they were going to be towards the end of the season where we finally start to see Gusha integrated a little bit more. We start to see a little bit more Crystal. Again, they seem to be ahead of my curve at least, and it could lead to a higher peak.
This also kind of... Go ahead, Val.
Sorry, go. You go.
Okay.
You go first.
This kind of speeds up. Also, we had this talk last episode where we talked about the inevitable kind of Billy team that's going to come over to China, and this kind of speeds up that integration a little bit, where we have Crystal now. He's coming in, he's playing a little bit more. We have Gushua, and this could be a roster that, you know, I don't know how long or how much the other Korean players are going to be playing there, but you have a very good academy team full of Chinese talent, which I think is going to mesh very, very well with the Chinese players that you currently have once you get to that point. So I think this is kind of speeding that up just a little bit. Like Stage 2, again, like Volamel was saying, I probably expected Stage 3 at the latest for when they would get integrated, but this is looking much better in your playoff spot. I think these are the first 2 Chinese players to get to a stage final, if I'm not correct.
Well, I mean, they get semifinals.
Yeah. Oh, like a stage playoffs. My bad. Stage playoffs.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
No, that's right. That's right.
Unless you include Dia, who
technically he played first.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah.
But you know what? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of integration, I think Crystal has surprised me more than I think, because Gushui, he's kind of had playtime, shared a bit with most might at the first, but has had the majority of playtime for a lot of the season so far, and has slowly been improving. Crystal was absent for all of Stage 1, suddenly started getting slotted in Stage 2, and I'm much more surprised with how quickly he was able to integrate than the kind of slower crawl Gushui had, which was still a lot quicker than expected.
Yeah.
How quickly Crystal is starting to come in. The fact that they're only putting him in for a little bit, rotating him with Adora, definitely helps. And just a note on the Korean players, like you were saying, as much as I'd love to see some of that talent come from Billy Gaming, it's not exactly like the Korean players are being slouches either.
Oh, yeah.
Godspeed started stepping up into the incredible DPS player everyone expected him to be on that Xayah role. IDK, honorary Chinese player from LFC, has been great since the start of the season. Even Rhea actually is starting to come into his own. Now Gushui is starting to get a bit more comfortable. Rhea is able to do a lot more on the off-tank role, and that's been a good sign to watch. So there's a lot of signs of life from Spark from both the Chinese and Korean players, and it's still halfway through the season. It's still plenty of time for things to maybe go wrong over the home stretch. But I'm definitely also very surprised with how well they've been able to start integrating these Chinese players so far.
It and seems kind of go ahead, sorry.
They've been kind of getting their teamwork in sync. Like Godsby has been a work in progress this entire stage, and maybe even this season. He's been slowly better, getting better, looking a little bit more comfortable on the Sombra, still kind of having these strange errors. You know, his grabs aren't great on Zarya, but everybody else is working cohesively, and we saw that kind of highlighted in the London match. Before we get off this topic, I wanted to kind of pose a quick question. They have a very stacked roster, right? Stacked in a sense, they have a lot of people. Is there a world where 1 or 2 of the Spark members go to Billy as a 2-way to participate next season? If so, who do you think would go?
So they can be... So they can be Korean, right? You're just
there's like a limit.
You have like 2,
I believe.
2 or 3. So I don't know, because we'll get into this topic a little bit later about Billy, but I think that team, the only place I would really kind of section off that team for like any sort of 2-way contract that you could get an upgrade from is the Brigitte role and the off-tank role. And maybe not even the off-tank role after what I saw in the semifinals, but I think you can send Crystal probably to a 2-way. Maybe. Yeah. He looks like, and depending if they want, yeah, that's the thing is like, do you want to? And I don't know.
I mean, you could send Gusha and Crystal, but like,
but like, I don't know if you send a Korean player down there just to like get some reps, because they're an all Chinese team already. You could
Sure.
do it if you're, if you really wanted to make sure that this player is getting some, like if No Smite, for instance, if you really want No Smite to get playtime and are really gung ho on him being on your roster, then yeah, I think you can send him down. But you have Over down there. Over is no slouch himself.
I think maybe the one that I would look at is maybe put Sashin on the two-way and have him compete with Zijin for that role and maybe get him some reps there. I don't think there's any other role where you've got someone on Spark who could use that extra playtime being a two-way and being able to play in Contenders. And I think Billy have a need there. The only other player I can really think of is maybe sending Baji down, but then he's competing with Shy, and I would never, as much as I love somebody who plays with team from Baji, I would never start him with a Shy. Same kind of applies with the flex support situation where they've got Bebe and Revenge, maybe you send one of them down, they've got to compete with Coldest. That's not happening. I think Sashin is maybe the one where it is feasible that you send him down to compete with Sashin.
And with Billy, unfortunately, though, they will not be moving forward to compete in the Pacific Showdown. But
I'm so upset.
I know. I just feel the heartbreak on the other end there.
Well, because
you're upset because we have to send T1w.
Yeah, well, because I'm upset because if Billy wins this game, the week 5 game, if they win that game against T1w, they go to the other side of the bracket, and we're most likely at that point getting Billy and LGE, who are the two representatives, which I think are the two best teams that we have.
Yes. Easy.
All right, so let's rewind a little bit. So this past weekend, thank you. So this past weekend, we finally did have the Chinese Contenders grand finals. And Kenobi, who was in that grand final?
It was T1w versus LGE after T1w had beaten very closely of LGD by the skin of their teeth, beaten them in the semifinals, and LGD had a rather tough game against BLG, tougher than I expected it to be, at least for myself when I was casting that game. I thought it was going to be LG kind of just asserting their dominance over BLG, but BLG actually played pretty well, much better than I expected. So, and that game was really the game where I thought that I was really this is what I wanted the grand finals to be, and this is what I wanted our two representatives for China to be, because they both played really well. LG just has the upper hand because Haker is just Haker. It's so hard to play against LGE, and it ended up being a 4-0 in the grand finals for LGE Huya, and they're taking home a pretty penny, but they're both going to go to the showdown.
And we've seen a couple of opinions about that grand final coming out, especially referring to T1w. Vowels, I know you have strong feels about this team, so I'm just gonna throw it over to you and let you kind of go off.
Man, T1w. I don't know what happened. They looked really strong during the group stage. They went 5-0. They 4-0'd the next best team in their group. Billy is the final game of the group stage. And then in 3 weeks between the group stage ending and the playoffs starting, I believe the patch changed. So maybe that's something to do with it. I don't know. They just kind of forgot everything. They went 3-2 against Lucky Future, who really wasn't a strong team, and then against LGD, which is maybe a bit more forgivable, and then they were just completely outclassed in that final. I think the next 2 weeks have kind of got to be an identity crisis for T1w, because if they can't get their act together before Showdown, they might legitimately cost China a Gauntlet spot. If this T1w shows up to the Pacific Showdown, I couldn't put money on them beating anyone. They just look lost. Hybe has forgotten how to play the game. Molanman has forgotten how to play the game. Micha can play Doomfist, but has forgotten how to play everyone else. Rhea and Illusion have some clutch moments. Silver3 isn't bad, but the team in general just looks lost. They look like 6 puggers you've put together, not the team that won the last season of Contenders, not the team that took LFZ the closest, still sharing the same core from season 2. There's no other way to put it, I think. They've just kind of forgotten how to play the game, and it is not encouraging viewing. Looking forward to the Pacific Showdown.
Oh gosh, and Volamel, please give me some better news about LGE.
LGE, genuinely surprised me. I think my kind of eureka moment with this team, I think me and Vowels were just kind of caught up watching it the other day, and
Mm-hmm.
the way that they play around and they really try to facilitate Haker, especially on maps that don't really lend themselves to playing the Sombra Goat style. There was a moment on Hanamura on their attack where they wouldn't commit to pushing through the choke point. They would constantly try to bait T1w in and just play really, really slow. And that's clean Overwatch to me. That's playing around your win conditions. That's waiting for Molly to pop off. He does. They push in. They take the point. Or that's waiting for Haker to build EMP. They EMP the choke. You take the fight there and you win. It's clean. There's nothing. There was nothing messy about that, and that was my big thing with that week break, because we saw T1w and we saw LGE play previously in the next qualifier, and T1w gave them a mollywhopping. It wasn't close. They played well into this Sombra style, and I was worried that the LG was just going to get kind of in the same vein that T1w got forward. I figured they were going to get kind of like demolished because they only play this one style. They're very rigid. What can they do to adapt? And I don't think they really needed to. I do think that T1w did play very, very poorly, but all in all, this was a nice clinical kind of expedition going into Pacific Showdown, and it definitely lends some faith going into those first couple matchups for them.
And how much faith do you put in Haker specifically? Like, is he the true linchpin to LGE? Like, without Haker, will they still be able to perform as highly?
I think I'd have to say that he is. He is the player that they constantly do play around. He's the player that their strategies are drafted around. He's kind of their star player, and everybody rallies around him. And that's not to say that, you know, a lot of these other players aren't as good, but he is their focal point in terms of their strategy. He sets other people up for success. They set him up for success. It is very much a teamwork oriented team. Not a ton of firepower there, but you know when you have people like Molly, you have people like Haker, stuff's gonna die, and it does in fantastical fashion sometimes.
I think it's kind of hard to address what would LG be like if Haker can't perform, because we haven't seen that. Their identity basically all season has been Haker plays Sombra and we win. I think that maybe that is a good question, that if Haker gets taken away, if the enemy team manages to adapt and take away the potential for the plays that goes from the Sombra, maybe there are questions for how Lingan adapts. We haven't seen Haker play Zaya at all. We don't know what their normal goat's like. It has just been that Sombra goats. And I think looking at some of the matchups they're going to in Pacific Showdown, going up against a Korean team like O2 Blast, I would take LG any day based on the performance of O2 Blast. They looked great in playoffs, but they struggled against the Sombra comps. I think the one matchup that does intrigue me is Element Mystic versus LG. If we do get that towards the later end, where you've got this 2-2-2 Doom for Sombra comp we're seeing versus the Sombra Goats, maybe the two best Sombras we're seeing outside Owl right now. If you want to push the boat out, make kind of a hot take about how well these two are performing. I think LG is going to be a very intriguing team to see at Showdown. I think they're going to come in very strong with this Sombra Goat style. But that is the big question. How can they perform if Haker gets taken away? If they can't just play the Sombra Goats over and over and win? And maybe some of the matchups we'll see at Pacific Showdown are going to be very interesting to watch in that regard.
And there was someone, Joe was talking a little bit about the other players that were on this team, and I think the three people that I really want to credit for a lot of this season and just playing, knowing their role, are the three people who have been there since last season, and that's Kami, that's Molly, and that's Lingsa. I think those three players have had probably their best season ever of Contenders this season. Yeah. Kami, in the grand finals, played a nuts Brigitte, and say whatever you want about Brigitte. I think his Brigitte basically Molly whopped Molan completely as much as, everyone else did. Molly consistently throughout the semifinals and grand finals is always 30-40% ahead of his enemy Zenyatta. And, the enemy Zenyatta at one point was Coldest, who I am like the biggest fanboy of, but Molly is like getting towards this point now where I'm like, I have to kind of reconsider, is Coldest the best Zenyatta in the region? Because Molly has been playing consistently very, very well. And Lengsa, just a very capable Lucio. Doesn't really layer support ultimates too much. They do have issues sometimes where they do that, but I think.
But what Contenders team doesn't.
Yeah, right.
It's to be expected with.
He doesn't make like terrible mistakes, right? They're all very good at their role, and I think they should be commended for coming into this season losing a team that was actually thought was pretty decent towards the end of the back season. They were a lot better than they were, but they come in, they make this entire roster change, and Kami and Lynx and Molly both have their best season, or all three of them have their best seasons ever. So I think they deserve a lot of credit for making this season as good as it was. And again, the other two people that we can talk about as well are J-Mac and Piggy. Both played pretty well this season, and again, I think
definitely have been improved. I'd say. I think.
I mean, if you had told
me at the start there was some shakiness, but all in all, I think at this final has definitely solidified them as a very respectable representative going into Showdown. I think they play very clean, and that's I'll get into my point after you finish, Kenobi. Continue.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, if you had told me at the start that this team would be the best team in the league, I probably would have just slapped you in the face or just said sell. I got a bridge with no water. You want this? Like, you want to sell this? Like, I would do something like that.
Bridge in the desert.
Yeah, but
I remember going through that kind of roster unveiling list and being like, oh, let's look at the academy teams, and you had LGE, you had Guangzhou, you had Billy. Like there was definitely teams I was excited about, and LGE was not one of them. J-Mac and Piggy, they were from a region that nobody, J-Mac, formerly Jungmac, played in Korea, was never anybody that super surprised me, never really popped up on my radar, and Piggy played in PAC, so again, wasn't super familiar with him there. I think they've really come into their own and looked very, very good. And then you have ATD just kind of sitting on the bench, and that's where I want to kind of pick up my point. Let's do a thought experiment for a moment. Let's assume that Haker can't go to Showdown, for instance. Ooh. So let's try to build a team, because I think that from what I saw in that final, with that clean play, I don't think that just goes away if you have to play goats. Maybe it's a little bit less comfortable. I still think that all of the teamwork that they've built throughout the season plays well if you have to rotate towards just a strict goats composition, which again, you're going into Pacific Showdown. This is not a goats region, strict goats region. We'll get into that later on, and we'll get into your O2 point, because I don't know if I super agree with it, but we'll explore that. But let's look at LGE for a moment. Let's imagine that Haker can't play. So you have J-Mac on the main tank. You can move Piggy to play Diva. You can move Kami, who played Zarya last season, looked solid. You can move him onto Zarya this season. Move ATD to Brig. Maybe Kami plays Brig because he's a little bit more comfortable on it. It's definitely a pivotal role, but again, you need that Zarya for the damage. I still think this team has a depth to them that we haven't seen yet. Will we see that in Showdown? I doubt it, but
I doubt it.
If like push comes to shove and they do have to get rid of Haker at some point, with his retirement or supposed retirement, I think they have a depth here that if goats is still the meta, they'll be fine, I think.
And let's move forward a little bit and talk about the Showdown. So there's a lot on the line for the 6 teams who will be moving forward. So we do have a representative from the Pacific region, 2 representatives from China, 2 from Korean Contenders, and 1 from Australia. And what's really at stake is positions going forward to the Gauntlet, where they'll face off against Atlantic teams and really see which Contenders team reigns supreme. Huge event to scout out future OWL talent. But another thing that's really important is the placing of each of these teams. That will impact how many teams get to go to that Gauntlet. So the first and second place teams, the first place team only will receive an additional invitation to the Gauntlet from their region. And the bottom 2 teams will lose an invitation to the Gauntlet, which could be pretty catastrophic for
especially
Australia
if you're a wild card region, even going to Atlantic. If you're South America and you place in the bottom 2, you're just not going to have any representation at the Gauntlet, and that sucks.
So there's a lot of pressure going in, and let's kind of start from the top here. Do you think that either of the two Chinese teams, LGE and T1w, where will they be placing in this tournament?
I think we're worried about T1w. If the
Yeah.
consensus is right,
Not.
Man, deep in my heart of hearts, I want to say T1w gets it together and performs at some of the heights we've seen from T1w before and has a good showing at the Showdown. But based on what we've seen from T1w on this patch in the playoffs, you can't make that assumption. I don't think T1w are going to have a strong showing at all. I think maybe a really good showing for LG from Lingan could come through and kind of counterbalance it. Maybe T1w loses a spot, but Lingan places high enough to gain another one. Is it top 2? Sorry, that gets
top
another
1
spot?
gets
Is
the
it
additional.
Only the
Just
first.
Okay, but maybe not then. But I don't know. I've got high hopes for how Lingan plays. I think, especially the way they play Sombra, is going to match up really strongly into a lot of these teams. But T1w, I don't think you can hedge any kind of bet on T1w right now in terms of them actually showing up, because we haven't seen that recently. And it has been such a drastic change from what we used to that I don't know what to expect from them.
It's just weird.
Kenobi, what do you think?
I think this is really dangerous, kind of, within spot T1Ws, and really, like, at this point in the tournament, I just need them to win 2 matches, right? You can beat Talon, maybe. Like, I don't know much about Talon. I don't know much about Pac in general, but I feel like that could be a closer one than I don't know, actually, though. But like I said, I don't know anything about Talon, and T1Ws looked really, really, really not that great. So I'm just I'm trying to think about how they make it, and it's just you win those. So if you beat Talon, I think they have much better chance of getting that 4th spot, because then you play EM smashes T1w in every sense of the word.
Close.
They go to losers, and then you play like whoever comes out of that bracket, or out of that side of the bracket from the loser spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really they need to beat Talon. If they lose to Talon, I'm very, very worried about their chances, because then they'll have to probably play Talon again in the losers bracket, because EM's going to probably beat Talon as well. So them losing this first match is probably the most pivotal thing, right? If they beat Talon, maybe they get that 4th spot and we save pieces of the Gauntlet. If they lose to Talon, I think they probably just crash out of the tournament and end up in that 5th or 6th spot.
And another really vital matchup that I kind of want to talk about is O2 Blast versus Order, who then will face LGE.
Oh, this leads into our other comment about LG and...
This is probably going to be O2.
Yeah, I think it's...
No offense to the Aussies out there, but O2 looked pretty good.
As much as I'd love the boy Jordation to pop off on 10 and secure one for the lads down under, I think it's got to be O2. Up until maybe their finals performance against Element Mystic, I think they looked really strong. I think Kaiser, in particular, is kind of having a little bit of a renaissance, a return to form. The Kaiser Reddit thinks he is.
Eye of the Kaiser.
That's going to be an interesting storyline, at least to follow in the Showdown. I think it has to be O2 Blast that takes it. And then you look at the O2 Blast versus the Lingan matchup. I think with O2 Blast struggling against Element Mystic, I don't expect them to fare much better against Lingan Sombra, so they head down to losers bracket as well.
I don't know, man. O2 is a very, very strange team.
Yeah.
They pulled out this very weird Hanzo comp into specifically the Sombra.
Is it like the Hanzo goats? Like, quote unquote?
So it's drop the Diva, add a Hanzo, you still have Zen. Into specifically Sombra. Every time they see Sombra, if the map allows for it, for the most part, they will swap to this Hanzo stuff that I don't know that... Well, T1w pulled it out against LGE in the finals. But it's high B. I don't know that he's that much of a flex god.
I mean, T1w pulled a lot of stuff out in the finals, and none of it really.
I have a hot take about them. I wonder about them in regards to what the regional meta is like at Showdown, but we'll get to them. So O2 played GC Busan Wave, who have Edison, and they've been developing this very forward-centric Sombra strat. They pull out the Hanzo, and Krong looks very, very good into this matchup against Sombra on maps that allowed, of course. So that's where I worry with them. I think they struggled against Element Mystic Sombra because they would add in the Doomfist. They had pressure elsewhere. It was weird. It was not the same style that LGE plays, I would say. So if you're going to put in the Hanzo, I would like to see exactly how LGE takes that matchup. I don't think it's too unfavorable to them, but I'm more willing to give that a little bit. I'm leaning O2 there.
Do you think you see the? Do we think we see the Kami Fist though? The Kami Doom Fist? Because I think that is something that we could possibly see.
You could. I think as an answer to the Hanzo in particular, I don't know if it's Doomfist, but you could see a lot more creativity out of LGE that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
I think even if we do, there's a stark difference between the Kami Fist and
The Kami
Sparkle
Brig.
on Doom.
Yeah.
Sparkle, to his credit, is one of those characters where he kind of defies the meta in the sense that maybe Doomfist isn't the answer, it's Sparkle. That's the answer. If Sparkle's doing something on Doomfist, it's not Doomfist, it's Sparkle. That's the player Micha. Tying it back to China, that's the player Micha used to be. That's not what we've seen from him lately, so maybe that's an answer for T1w.
I think that's a team choice, though. I think that's a team choice. We've seen Doomfist succeed. We saw it with Guangzhou Charge in the Overwatch League. We've seen it with a couple other teams in the Overwatch League sporadically on maps. We've seen it in Korea now. We've seen it in a little bit in China on Control in particular. I think going into this Talon, because lo and behold, Talon plays some weird stuff. Okay? Talon plays some wonky things. On King's Row, they like to exclusively run May Goats. And on defense on King's Row, they play a lot of bunker. On Junkertown, their Thai flex super, he's actually more flexible than I remember. Oputo, name that's been around there for World Cup for Thailand, looks solid on a lot of different heroes. Zarya, maybe not so much. Sombra, maybe not so much. But your generic, like, maybe Season 1 Contenders heroes, your Genjis, your Pharahs, stuff like that, they look good. So this is going to be a scrappy game, T1w and Talon. I think there's going to be a lot of DPS heroes, and this lends itself to T1w style. If they want to opt into it, that's the big question here. Are they going to accept the Clown Fiesta? Because if they do, they're going to have a much better chance. If they try to play this Goats, if they try to put Mija on the Zarya, it's not going to look great. You put Assassin, it's not going to look great. Go full, accept that you're going to be the gimmick team that plays a lot of DPS. Go into this Talon matchup, and I think they actually have a good chance here.
The key to success is Silver Free on the Genji. That's what we need to see from T1w.
Or Hybe. You know, Hybe plays a bunch of other, like, he plays the Soldier. He can play the Genji. Someone besides their Genji player is going to play the Genji.
I just want to see, I would love to see Assassin and Mija. Assassin, Mija, Mulan run like an old-timey style of triple DPS, just cut Hybe, run some weird stuff, try to catch people off guard, because I think if you take this 3-3 matchup with teams like Element Mystic, with teams even like Order, I don't know if you want to take them in a 3-3 mirror. I don't know if that's what you really want to do. Not when you have an all-star Doomfist, and that's been proven to work. T1w has to kind of opt into this crazy stuff. That's what they're good at. That's what they're best at. Lean into it with a showdown, and you'll save your region a Gauntlet spot.
But even more exciting might be the potential for Element against LGE in the winners finals. I think right now that's a pretty sound possibility looking at this bracket. Yeah. It's definitely not a guarantee.
Not a guarantee, but it definitely could happen for sure.
So what would you even predict would be the score between those two teams? Is there even a chance of China to take that #1 spot? Maybe give a little bit of breathing room if T1w kind of ends up just, what's a nice way to put this? Failing?
Yeah, I mean, that's the accurate way.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my glass of Kool-Aid ready. I'm saying Frio.
I think with
Frio.
For who?
It was
Frio Lingard.
Oh, okay.
Go.
There was Avril was in chat during grand finals, actually. Shout out to Avril. He was in chat and he said something that was this kind of side tangent, but he says, "Can we put Micha on LGE so we can get Sparkle and Doha versus Haker and Micha?"
Yeah.
Which sounds like a battle for the ages because Element Mystic.
Funnily enough, those two players used to play
on AI.
together on AI.
So
Ambitious Immortals, Tangent, you know, this big open division team that came up, had this wonky style. This is where we got Haker. This is where we got Micha, formerly Schweigo. Looked really, really good. They broke up. They went their separate ways. It would be kind of a nice like return.
But I mean, we can't.
The real question is, could Ambitious Immortals beat Eagle Gaming?
I don't know if they'd beat Choose Money Crew.
That's a question for the philosophers, Vowels. You know, it's hundreds from years of now. That's when that happens. We can't answer that.
I hate every single one of you.
Yeah,
I just can't do it with you.
I've been broken by these memes.
You were broken way before that.
That's true.
but seriously though, Kenobi, Volamel, Vowels has said that LGE will win 3-0 in the winners finals.
He's speaking with his heart and the Kool-Aid. But
so what does your mind say? What does the Force say, Kenobi?
I don't know if my midichlorians are high enough to predict this.
So let's walk through this.
Yeah,
okay. Element Mystic, not the strongest 3-3 team in the world, right? They beat Runaway by utilizing Somber Goats, and in the grand final against O2, they used Somber Goats. They used a little bit of 3-3, but most of their kind of flashy moments came with this Doomfist Somber comp. That again caught a lot of people off guard, but the way that it was explained to me, that it's kind of like worse goats, right? Every position there still kind of does what your 3-3 counterpart would still do. So your Brigitte or your Doomfist, if I'm understanding it correctly, still displaces people, adds a lot of CC, has a one-shot mechanic, which obviously Brig doesn't, but you still set yourself up for a lot of pressure there. And then your Sombra still adds a lot of zoning. If I hack you, you're not going to be able to play forward because you don't have your abilities available. You have to play a little bit differently into it, but it still kind of plays similarly, right, Vals?
Yeah, I feel like kind of what I was just saying about Sparkle being one of these transcendental players who can kind of defy the meta. I think Element Mystic, with their version of 2-2-2, is kind of the exception that proves the rule. They can only play this 2-2-2 matchup into the Goats because they have such transcendentally strong players on the Doomfist and on the Sombra. And even then, it's just a budget version of Goats anyway.
And I think
it's not the beginning of the end of the Goats, the beginning of a new 2-2-2 of it. It's they're playing a kind of modified Goats that only works because they have players who are so talented at these two DPS heroes.
And I think the stylistic play is actually going to come in quite a lot here, because whenever we've seen LGE struggle, which this kind of happened a little bit in the semifinals of China, was when teams are able to play very aggressive and not let LGE play their style, right? LGE is a team that is very comfortable just dictating the pace of the series, right? They want to play at their own pace with their rotation of Ultimate Economy, with Haker getting EMP and stuff like that. The team that was really good at the one thing BLG did that was really good was they didn't let them do that, right? They were scouting Haker consistently, making sure he's not able to farm up EMP. Zijin had a really good series doing that, and Joe, you know a little bit more about Korea than I am. Does Element Mystic have that kind of aggressive style to their play that can make sure that they're not just going to sit back and let LGE walk over them, kind of like T1w did in the grand finals?
I think a team that is capable of running Sombra Goats, I think they know a fundamental, they have a fundamental understanding of it, that they know that, okay, in this scenario, we want to play aggressive. We want to punish them because we know that their Sombra doesn't have EMP, or we've already decloaked her, so we can pressure them and take the 5v6. That's something that I'm willing to say that both O2 and Element Mystic are very comfortable with. But the fun thing about LGE and Haker is that they can play within themselves. They can play Haker not on these crazy flanks. They can kind of play an almost soldier-esque. I think Vowels coined this term, and it kind of stuck out to me. You can play your Sombra like a soldier and put him behind, or put her behind the Rhine shield and go for these hacks. When Sparkle does these crazy dives in, guess what? Now you're hacked. A lot of damage from Doomfist comes from his abilities. So if you're hacking him in, you're punishing him, you're killing him early, the Sombra doesn't get a lot done. Now you're taking a 6v5 or maybe even a 5.5 versus 5, and you have the advantage because you're already grouped up. You're getting that healing from the 3/3 composition. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But this isn't. I'm not completely sold either way. I think this is going to be very close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will give credit. I can't remember who it is, unfortunately, but it was someone else explaining the same concept to me who first coined it, who first used Soldier, and then I kind of stole it. But that is kind of the best way to explain that kind of play style, forcing them to come into you when you're playing or something. You don't know if you're sort of go off and be the flanker trying to find someone on the backline. You just kind of sit in the team, pretend you're playing Soldier or some other kind of hit scan, just pressure the shield, force them to come to you, and then you can just throw a short range TP in, free MP.
Another thing that we could see, right? I think that's a one big key to success for LGE in the supposed winners finals. If they do face Element Mystic, they have to be able to change gears with Haker. They have to be able to say, hey, playing an aggressive flank heavy Sombra, it's not working. We're getting absolutely pounded by this Doomfist. What we need you to do is play behind the shield, hack the incoming damage, and then we can play off of that, which they've shown in the final against T1w. What also might happen, this is China.
Mistakes.
They might just pull out some stuff. They might just pull out some crazy stuff that we just haven't seen yet. They might have scouted this comp and said, yes, we see this Doomfist Sombra comp that, again, to be fair, T1w showed them in the finals. Wasn't great. At least they have some sort of experience with it. Is it at the level of Element Mystic? No. Do they have some sort of answer that we haven't seen yet? Have they developed in the week that we have? Granted, there's travel. Is there some sort of scouting that they have that they can use as a counter comp? I'd be willing to say that as well.
They got hit with the vaccine. They put up with the weak, stale, dying Doomfist Sombra so they know how to beat the actual version. That's how this works.
Exactly. That's a drink of the Kool-Aid.
Yes, and just to go around full circle, I'm sure we'll. Oh, Vowels! How's the squash? Tonight?
It's great.
It's great.
You're not down on that very quickly. You're just taking
Go into
sips.
NASCO. Tesco.
And just so to come full circle, All Stars once again starts tomorrow as of when we're filming this. We'll probably still see a little bit of that Doomfist Sombra, maybe even get a sneak peek to what those winter finals might even look like. Definitely not. Absolutely not.
Ameng Diva, that's all I want.
I want to see the Brenfist. That'll be fun.
Nah, I'm all about I'm with Danny Lim on this one. Hashtag Linsanity. Limb sanity, whatever you want to call it. I think he's going to pop off. His Reinhardt looked absolutely sick in those scrims. You know what I'm talking about, Danny.
Yep.
I think
you also can't. If we're talking about the Brent Fist, you cannot forget about the Puck Fist. It's just not. We can't be talking about that with it. We can't be
real
talking
talk
about
though. Real talk. You know who surprised me?
Who?
Achilleos has a widow. Achilleos has a widow.
Okay.
Yeah, me and Joe were sat yesterday just watching the talent streaming their scrims, and there are some players, some talent members who are really good. Some
Uber has the patience of an absolute monk, dude.
Whenever he's talking, he's just like, "Oh, you're doing such a good job." It's just you're doing such.
No. It's not praise. It's just like, okay, guys, we need to keep communicating. Like, we have to push up. Like, hey, stop dying so quickly. Like, he's just like calling constantly, and then there's somebody who keeps getting minds reflected in his face. Some
players, I'm just glad they're having fun.
as long as they're having fun, I mean, what else can we say?
I think there's so many predictions we can make about who will make the next Overwatch League stage playoffs, who will end up going to the Gauntlet, but I think of us might be able to agree on is that the Pacific team for Talent Takedown is absolutely going to annihilate. Like, I can really see it going no other way.
I don't actually
what is their rosters? Yeah, what is it?
You don't know the roster?
I don't know the rosters.
It's got Uber, Wolf, Achilleos.
Okay, so that was the roster we saw.
Okay,
you
said enough.
They're gonna win. Yeah. But on that note, thank you again to everybody who has joined us tonight. Hopefully this gets you even more pumped up for that Pacific Showdown, and the Atlantic Showdown will be happening a few days after Pacific, so we'll be able to figure out the entire roster for the Gauntlet. Hopefully, China is able to move forward with 2, maybe even 3 spots to the Gauntlet. You can keep our fingers crossed, but for now, that's all that we have tonight. I hope you all have a great night, day, whenever you watch this. Good night, everybody.